One of the concerns I have is that over the years there has been a very subtle shift in terms of history and textbooks, history and social studies. And one of the problems is it's not so much that history is literally being changed as much as it's being given a slightly different shift. And one of the people that I would use to support this preposition would be the fact that the late Howard Zinn, who was both an educator as well as a historian, had indicated that there is as much damage done to history by omission as just changing history itself, so that essentially where you leave key parts out, future generations don't fully understand the founding fathers. And I think one of the problems I have is that there appears to be a growing sense with kids today that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is just some old, some document that really doesn't apply to today, and there were a bunch of old white men who wrote it, and don't really appreciate that it becomes the very foundation of our country and who we are and what our founding fathers did. And I think where we're seeing this more and more is political correctness and partisan politics that are shifting what's in textbooks. There was a big battle a few months back with the Texas school books. Texas, California, and Florida represent about 13 million kids, and they represent the largest buying block for textbooks. California right now, which is my home state, is pretty much bankrupt, so Texas is really taking the lead. And what goes into the Texas school books will generally migrate into all the books around the country. Mm-hmm. One of the things that we're finding, for example, even on the college campuses, which used to be bastions of free speech, is that where speakers are invited to come in, David Horowitz, former Congressman Tom Tancredo, there's a large block of students who will literally block the speech, make such a row at the meeting that the speakers are literally forced to step down and leave campus because they're just not allowed to speak, and there's no consequences for the kids. One of the other things I'm finding is that there's a very subtle indoctrination of our children, which is, again, part of how school books will change. For example, back in April of 2009, the chairman of the Environmental Protection Agency had basically been asked in a video interview why they're teaching the children about climate change and essentially teaching it as fact and environmental issues, which are really paralleling right now with the administration's view of cap and trade. And her response was the best way to get parents to kind of fall back into understanding and agreeing with what the administration wants to do is when it comes to them from their children. And I think that's abhorrent, that we use children to essentially get back to the parents, where if the parents might not agree with maybe a public policy, coming to them from the children will. We're seeing the same thing right now. I mean, it's over, but in the California schools, in the last few weeks before school ended, LA Unified was teaching children that the Arizona law, which hasn't even been debated in the courts yet, teaching the children that this is essentially racial profiling and the return of Jim Crow laws and discrimination. And there's no opposing point of view, so kids are basically getting an opinion, and then as they grow up, what we're going to find is that they're literally going to lack the understanding of the inalienable rights that are provided to us as citizens of this country are less enforceable, and there's less of a concern when people don't even understand them as adults.